Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for coming. There's a lot to see here, so thank you for taking the time to come to this section of the activities. I'm Heidi. For those of you who don't know me, I run the Food Made Good Hong Kong, and we are a chapter of the UK Sustainable Restaurant Association. Today, in this session, we're going to talk about the bar world of tomorrow. It's an initiative by Pernod Ricard, and we are powering the stage today with an introduction, and then we'll be bringing on some really exciting panelists to talk about their experience after taking part in the bar world of tomorrow, but also being a food service business in Hong Kong. So, what does this section look like for the next 2 hours, if you can stay with us? We'll be looking at what is the bar world tomorrow, who is it for, why are we running this program, and how did we do it? Then we'll follow with the panel discussion. We've got some fantastic speakers with us today. And we'll end with a really fun mixologist demo with Alex, who's here with me at the front. And we also have a little bit of a quiz as well, so stay put and you can win a prize at the end of the quiz. All right, so I'm going to bring on Leon to the stage. Leon, come over. He is the project manager for Bar World of Tomorrow and instrumental in getting this program off the ground. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Heidi. I'm Leon Navaratna, a project manager for sustainability and responsibility at Pernod Ricard Asia. Firstly, let me just remove my mask so you can see my face. I have to keep it on. It's the standard operating procedures. And it smells pretty fishy in here, actually. But anyway, I've got my speaker notes just to remind myself in case I missed out anything. Just a bit of a history to Pernod Ricard. We are all createurs de convivialité. That's French. I've just butchered it, so don't worry about it. We are all creators of conviviality. So our history has always been rooted in being a sustainable and responsible company. Our founder, Paul Ricard, actually, he has always been a sustainability champion. He's been a champion of the people. He's been a champion of the communities we work in. And he's been a champion for the environment. He first started carrying out active work in the environmental conservation space. It was back in 1966 when there was a pollution in the Mediterranean Sea. That's when he was actively campaigning against it, and he started the Oceanographic Institute in 1966 for the conservation of marine biodiversity and the environment. So, well, before I dive into why did we develop the Bar World of Tomorrow, just taking a step back and to help introduce to you our sustainability and responsibility commitments. So we have a 2030 sustainability roadmap. It's called Good Times from a Good Place. Essentially, it covers 4 pillars. Some of us would like to say it has 4 petals because it looks like a flower. But it covers 30 commitments across all 4 pillars in line with the UN SDGs as our guiding beacon. Each of these pillars have dedicated commitments which are implementing around the world. Just on the next slide. Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, cool. Well, just a high-level overview of the type of commitments we have covering our 4 pillars. We used to sing the song From Grain to Glass. So that essentially covers the grain, where we source our raw materials, where we grow our grapes for our wine, where we source our flavorings for the various products that we have from the ground, all the way to the people that we work with, our employees, the farmers, and everyone within our supply chain. Circular making, that's when we talk about our products that we put onto the market, essentially promoting and advocating a circular approach to how we work, and ending with responsible hosting, so how we serve and how to be ambassadors to responsible consumption of alcohol, as we are strong advocates for that as well. So just on nurturing terroir, we have a commitment to protect biodiversity, local biodiversity wherever we have our footprint in globally, as well as the implementation of regenerative agriculture across all our vineyards around the world. On valuing people, essentially it's a commitment around diversity and equality within our company, as well as all the employees within our supply chain. On circular making, it's commitments around, as I mentioned, circular approach, so restoration of water tables, net zero commitments, and the rethinking and the redesigning of our packaging. And on responsible hosting, we have strong commitments to have a minimum of one program in each affiliate around the world tackling societal alcohol misuse programs. So as you know, in Asia, we have a lot of issues around topics like drink driving. So that's kind of things that we work a lot with industry partners and multi-stakeholder platforms to tackle issues like this. So that's where we are. On our pillar for valuing people, we have a strong commitment to train 10,000 bartenders on the bar world of tomorrow, essentially bring them on board to be in our sustainability journey, to be sustainability leaders and champions and ambassadors for the bar world of tomorrow. So that's something that we'll talk about today. And what is it? What is the bar world of tomorrow? So the Bar of Tomorrow, just a bit of a background to it. It was launched in early 2020 as a way to give back to the bartending and the hospitality industry. So, while we're still going through the pandemic right now, last year a lot of businesses and F&B outlets were shut. A lot of people were out of jobs, and in particular, bartenders had a lot of free time. So it was an opportunity for us to develop this e-learning in partnership with our partners Trash Tiki and the Sustainable Restaurants Association. So it's a sustainability training dedicated for bartenders to upskill them to transform their practices, to be ready when they do open up eventually. And as you know, in Hong Kong, a lot of bars and businesses are open up. Hopefully it's the same throughout Asia and throughout the world. It's freely available online. It's hosted on the United Nations Educate All app, or app. So if you get on Google, you just type the Bowl of Tomorrow, you can find it. It's available in 7 languages. So just check it out, get onto it, get trained. And what does it look like? What does it cover? So the training essentially covers 5 pillars. Moving on from brands, so brand knowledge and knowing where the brands are produced and sort of the history of it, sustainability stories behind the brands. Moving on to sourcing, so fresh ingredient sourcing, being aware of seasonalities and things like that. Service, so responsible service, and things behind the bar itself. So that could be on waste management, water and energy management, as well as ice management. And then ending with a pillar around staff and employee well-being, as well as supporting mental health in the workplace. So that's something that the Bar of Tomorrow covers. And so that's the e-learning. It's available throughout the world. It's still live right now. And we thought, let's create an impact. Let's try and have face-to-face workshops in Hong Kong. Let's see how that goes. So while we're sort of, in the space of looking for independent consultants to help us deliver it, and have the knowledge to run workshops and train our bartenders, it just made sense to work with Food Made Good, which Heidi will come up in a bit. So Food Made Good is a chapter of the Sustainable Restaurants Association in the UK. So we work with them, and they help bring the workshops to life here in Hong Kong. So maybe Heidi, over to you.
Thank you, Leon. That was great. Thanks for sharing a little bit about Bar World of Tomorrow. So before I go into how we develop the program, I just want to give a sense of, why work with Food Made Good and what do we do as an organization. So the way we deliver all of our work is through our 3 pillars: society, sourcing, and environment. So crucial issues, and the whole framework was developed by working really closely with independent think tanks, NGOs, caterers, food service sector, policymakers. So we really understand these 10 circles here to be pertinent and important to the sector. And that's how we deliver all of our work, ensuring that everything we do relates back to our framework. And as you can see, it's very holistic in nature, so fully aligning with all the 17 goals. So that's the framework. And then just to mention that we do work with partners big and small. We call them from high street to high end. So everyone can get involved. It's very much an inclusive program, joining the Food Made Good membership. We have some members in the room here today as well. We also work with landlords, private clubs, hotel groups, and sustainable suppliers. And our role is really to make that connection, make it easy for food service businesses to find those sustainable suppliers. And you'll find some of them in our area behind you later on. So, just moving on. What have we done so far with Pernod Ricard? We started off, as Leon said, a couple of years ago, working with London and Paris at the head office. We've designed some toolkits. We've worked with Asia's 50 Best. We've done some auditing. So we're actually quite well known for our audits. And then this is a really exciting project. It's the Net Zero Bars project. And we're running pilots in the UK with Pernod Ricard. And it's called the Net Zero Bar Initiative. So that's happened internationally. But here in Hong Kong, we've actually almost trained 100 bartenders, including some of those in the room here today. And that was developed together with the Pernod Ricard team here in Hong Kong. We've delivered about 6 sessions altogether, and there's 5 more to come over the next 6 months. So how do we do this? How do you localize a program that has been designed for a global audience? There's Alex. He's right in the front, and he's a bit embarrassed. But you look very handsome, Alex. So how do you bring to life a program that's designed to be for an app? 160 slides. How do you bring it to life? So we were brought on to kind of humanize it. How do you get people excited about sustainability? How do you bring on bartenders and those that work in the hospitality sector to get excited about sustainability in the bar sector? So we took this sort of approach here. So localization, really incredibly important. Network, thinking about who we can connect up with in terms of sustainable suppliers and our stakeholders and our friends in the industry. Certification, crucial because we want to be credible. We want to make sure that the bartenders also get something out of it. They got a fantastic certificate from CPD. And then we delivered it, working together very, very closely with the Pernod Ricard team. So let me go into a bit of detail here. All right, so in terms of localization, it was crucial that we made this program work for Asia. So we can't have this kind of pie-in-the-sky academic project. We had to localize it so it fit the Hong Kong market and also fit the region as well. So we made sure that we included, local policies, maternity, paternity. What are the policies around all of those kind of well-being issues? What about local units of alcohol, for example? It's different in every country. So, we looked to research with Fred, the Hong Kong organization for alcohol. And making sure that all of the calendars were relevant to the region when we talked about local sourcing of ingredients and fresh ingredients, but also those dry ingredients that are crucial for sourcing from developing countries. And then how did we make this interesting and hands-on and fun and make sure that we're reaching the layman? Because some of these sustainability challenges are quite complex and can get quite academic. So we made it very interactive, and we used quizzes, we used Kahoots, Quizlets, we had games, so you'll have a taste of that later on because there's some cards in front of you on the table. And we made it as interactive as possible. We also wanted to make sure that we could track the knowledge that we were teaching. So we had quizzes as well from when bartenders entered the room and left the room. And then we brought on Luca, the bartender at Pernod Ricard, a star bartender. Are you here, Luca? Do you want to tell the guys here how we managed to make it real and not kind of just too textbooky?
Definitely, yes. Hello, my name is Luca. I'm the specialty brand ambassador for Pernod Ricard. I probably should stay here. So we had an interactive session with the bartenders at the bar area where we basically shared from our experience some practices that will maybe show us how to basically reduce waste or consume energy in a more proactive mode. Especially some of them also had the management level in their venues, and for them was also a very interesting opportunity to understand. I just want to give you a simple example how reducing with 2 degrees Celsius the AC can impact the quality of the time spent of the guests at the bar without creating any discomfort, but also being able to optimize the energy used over there. Or simple examples for junior bartenders, what we can do to replace egg white. Nowadays, we are very happy to have on the market some products over there which can replace egg white. For example, you have some powders made from plants. You just need to mix them with water. They have a long shelf life. So all this cumulative information and all these facts that we shared together, I do believe that brought a lot of value and also helped us for the older ones to remind ourselves so many things that we basically forgot throughout the years. It was a great opportunity, and I'm very happy to have been part of the first session because in Asia was the first market where we launched this beautiful program. And even in those circumstances, we managed to reach 96 bartenders overall, if I'm not mistaken, Leo, 96. It was really, really good, and it was teamwork. It was something that definitely also helped us a lot to know more about the trade, about the bartenders. And like Heidi mentioned, the certificate was very, very interesting. Most of them, they were really, really happy when they got the certificate. We also had, like, probably you've seen the picture with Alex, where he was looking very cool, very sharp. We had a nice apron with the Bar World of Tomorrow. Also, I would like to emphasize on the fact that I was surprised to find out so many things so many favorite practices of the bartenders. For example, back in the days when I started bartending, there was no such thing as a water pedal. You guys are familiar with the water pedal? So the water pedal is like, it's a tap which works with a pedal, so you can basically stop the water while you're washing your hands. You basically optimize the consumption of water, and you're also more active behind the bar. Do you guys have any questions? Should we pass around the microphone for any questions? Okay. Then I will give the microphone back to Heidi. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Luca. That was great. It's always good to hear from the horse's mouth as well, like what the reality of is it, rather than always just hearing from those who developed the program. Another thing that we did, absolutely crucial to making this a success, was communicating. So we believe in no matter what you're doing around sustainability, you need to communicate your efforts. Because you're changing practices, you're changing behavior, you want to share that with your customers and also with your internal team so that they believe in your journey. So we got the bartenders. We started off with what we call our low-hanging fruit, so Hong Kong's sort of most well-known bartenders. And this was that first group here. You'll see some of them in the crowd today. We got them to share this program, and it was through word of mouth and through all those kind of private WhatsApp groups that we started to build a really nice, build up interest on the course. And we also encouraged them to share it on social media. And that's how we managed to grow the program to where we are today. So going on to networks, it was crucial to also provide options, local solution providers, because we didn't want to just offer kind of the theory, this is what you can do. Well, what if I want to switch to filtration water and stop purchasing all those bottled water, importing them from abroad? So we introduced the bartenders to some, sustainable suppliers. There's one over in the corner over there, Tim. And Tim from Eat the Kiwi. So there's lots of different brands here today that we would consider sustainable. And it was really important to introduce those sustainable solutions to the industry. And then, as we mentioned already about the certification, it was crucial that we made this a credible program, so the bartenders and those who attended believed in it, and they could have something for their CVs. And also to say that this has been accredited by another organization, not just us. It's no good just, Food Made Good going on about a great course. We also got accredited and ensured that what we delivered was of a high quality. And so we gave out these certificates, so you might see them around some of your favorite bars in town. And then finally, in terms of delivery, it was so important that we worked together with the Pernod Ricard teams. So you had the accounts teams who had those strong relationships with the bartenders themselves. You had the sustainability and responsibility teams. And then you had those who delivered the course, the brand ambassadors. So it's very much a group effort. So then you might wonder, well, what's next? How do you reach this goal of 10,000? Or actually, how do you start taking steps towards a goal of 10,000 bartenders? So we started thinking, we can't go and visit all of these countries, right? So we started to think about how do we do this train the trainer style. So that's what's next. Coming up for 11 markets, we'll be helping Pernod Ricard to train their internal teams and bring them up to speed on how they can deliver this program for APAC. And we'll be doing this with 40 trainers and especially reaching out to those brand ambassadors as well. So this will be starting up in January. So if we've got any bartenders, GMs in the room and you're interested in this program, feel free to reach out to either myself or Leon, who you saw earlier on. And we can let you know, what in terms of availability, what's possible. Okay, so before we move on to our next part with our panelists, I just want to get a sense of what are you thinking in terms of sustainability? What challenges come to mind when you think about a bar setting? So if you want to take out your phone and take a picture here of the QR code, I want to get a sense of, imagine you're in a bar. What sustainability challenges are there that exist that you think are the most important and that we need to deal with in terms of prioritizing? Okay, I think we can move it over to the screen. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's really just to see what comes to mind. Is it working? Okay. Cool. So cost is a big one. I can see a lot of people are worried about cost. So don't worry, we'll address that with our panelists coming up soon. Waste. I hope you've all heard about the waste charge that's finally been passed. The waste bill. So although it's only affecting residents today, it won't be voluntary for the food service sector forever. So it's something that we hope the sector is addressing. Glass bottles, yeah, that's a really big challenge for Hong Kong's bars. And water. Some of you may know that 70% of the world's water is used for agriculture. So we really need to be careful with the way we use water. What else do we have? Ingredient sourcing, straws. We've got a fantastic alternative straw brand in the Sustainability Pavilion over there if you're interested in straws. Okay, super. So I hope my team have got an image of that, which we'll share later on. Okay, time to now bring up our panelists. Okay, so if you need to get in touch, Leon, and my email's up there. Feel free to reach out to us. And then I'm going to bring up our panelists. Okay, Leon, do you want to introduce our panelists?
I'll grab you. Okay, well, thank you very much, Heidi. Now we will swiftly move on to the second session, which is our panel discussion. So after the training course for the Bowl of Tomorrow, we wanted to know what have people done, what are the barriers of implementation, and sort of the kind of challenges that they face. So we thought, hey, let's have a panel discussion. Let's bring some people up and talk about the sustainability problems they face and the things that they do in their business. So we'll hear from a range of voices today. So we have representative from an independent small bar up to a large hotel group, as well as the F&B sort of hospitality groups. So a range of voices, a range of perspectives. It'll be pretty interesting to hear from them, the things that they do. So these are champions for sustainability in their company collectively, and we will hear from them. So first up, I'd like to introduce Agong and Roman from Penicillin. And we have Richard Akibus from the Denmark Mandarin Oriental. Jermaine Woon from Gia Group. Alex Koh from Tastings, as well as Monique from Black Sheep.
Let's give them a round of applause.
Yeah. Is there enough chairs? I think so. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, all right. Ah, okay.
It's a tight squeeze, but I promise you it's worth it. All right, so thank you guys for taking the time today. I'm really excited. We've got such an incredible panelist group because it's so diverse, from small independent owners down the end, all the way, through to these groups, and then international hotel chain. Sorry about the sound. So I guess we want to start. I think I want to start with Malik because I am really.
That's very exciting.
I'm really excited about your program with Go and Go Forever. So I'd love for you to explain what that's all about to our audience. But first, maybe just where did your journey begin at Black Sheep Restaurants? Because you've been in Hong Kong quite a while, and I know you guys have been working on sustainability for quite a few years.
So, thank you for starting with me. So exciting. Very happy to be here. I think one of the important things to note about Black Sheep and its sustainability journey, so talking about the business itself, is that, you cannot really have a company or an organization without thinking about sustainability. It's a topic that is always going to be top of mind. And I think, we as a company have a social responsibility to address that. We want to leave the communities in which we live and work and play better than where we found them. But when I started at Black Sheep in 2018, I started witnessing firsthand what we were doing, the steps that we were taking to kind of make a difference, make a change. And it was simple things like straws that you've mentioned. It was really all of the food packaging that we were using. So moving from plastics to a better alternative, so whether that be a paper packaging. And it sort of really progressed from there. And we were making these changes not just within the Go community, but also within our restaurants. So brick and mortar, and the delivery platform is just an extension of our restaurants. So this was something that I think was very easy to implement. And ever since then, we have been thinking about what's next from a sustainability point of view. And Go Forever is something that was born out of that. But the process has been a long time coming. So I think at least 2 years ago, our founder, Asim, read an article on the New York Times that talked about the Dabwalas, the delivery men and women, I guess, in India. And they have been delivering tiffin, hot meals to city dwellers, city workers for 130 years. And they started doing this with zero technology. So just imagine what we can do now with the amount of technology that we have. So that's kind of where the journey really started.
And a little bit rebellious to move away from the mainstream delivery companies, would you say?
Well, of course, and again, the Go story is the first story, Go Forever, being the second birth of Go 2.0, I guess you would say. But it was about being able to take control of our products within our delivery system. So we cook the food, we create these dishes with pride. We want them to go out into the world as we would, want them to be. And of course, if you hand them over to some of the bigger, conglomerates, then it changes the integrity of things. It's hard to track them. We cannot, guarantee the state in which they'd be delivered. So when we took everything in-house, that just made everything a lot easier for us. Yeah.
And so tell us about this system then. How does it actually work, this kind of deliver and reuse and return system, because it's been tried before, but you're actually one of the first groups that are really taking this on, taking control of it, because we're big advocates for reuse systems. Reuse is where we need to be. It's great to have alternative packaging, but ultimately we cannot keep drawing from the earth all these natural resources, and we need to be focused on how we can just change the system as a whole.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think what we realized is that, in Hong Kong, we all have these great intentions, whether you're using vegware or you're using like a sustainable packaging, but it all goes to the same place at the moment because Hong Kong actually doesn't have the processing plants to break these things down like they do in Canada or in the UK. So we decided that, let's take this Tiffin idea and see how we could best do it. So of course, it took us some time to kind of like land on the right product. I do have a few things in there I can take out later. But it was really about, okay, let's find a package that we can use. And we found something, I think, out of France. So we've had to like bring it here. And we went out to our market. We went out to a lot of our guests, our core users, I guess, from a Go perspective. And, we invited people to apply essentially for this pilot scheme. So it is a very small scheme at the moment. We do have a limited radius of people that we can deliver to. And so people would write to us, they said, hey, I'm really interested. We would register them, find out where they lived. And then we would say that, to sort of kick things off, it is a $400 refundable deposit. And the reason for that is because we really do need to get the containers back. Like the last thing we want is for them to disappear and then this closed loop circular system then sort of falls apart, right? We have 15 restaurants on our Go delivery platform, but at the moment, only 7 of them actually live on Go Forever because it's not a one-stop solution for all of our restaurants. So restaurants like Soul Food Thai or Hotel Colombo, Taqueria Supermacho, Maison Lebanese are perfect for these containers, but Motorino, like you can't put pizza into a small container. So things like that will still be delivered in the normal way, in a beautiful cardboard paper box. So for us, it's really, it's a step-by-step solution. Yeah. And, the food that we put in, we haven't adapted the food. It's more about finding the containers to fit the food. And then people can order. You get delivered into this lovely Go bag here, which is a sustainable bag. And then when you order again, our driver will come with the same sort of system set up, and you just swap it out. Or you have the option to drop it off at Burger Circus, which is one of our burger joints located on Hollywood Road. So in fact, that's actually people love that. So they eat it, then they bring it the next day, and they drop it off and order again. So it seems to be working quite well. And of course, the objective is to expand and add more restaurants.
That's really exciting because you could pioneer this and hopefully put a little pressure on your friends or your competitors to get moving in that way as well.
It's up to them to sort of catch up. So let's see.
So we'll want to catch up with you to find out how that program goes in the future. And would you say that you need champions inside to be pushing this project forward? Because how do you maintain the interest?
Absolutely, and I think one of the really great things about Black Sheep is that when we have an idea, we are all very much a part of it. So we don't have infighting. There's no one that says, hey, I think that's a terrible idea. I don't want to do that. I think we are just a really well-connected and really gelled community. We have inspiring leaders. So whenever they bring something to us, of course, we think, they bring us good ideas. But even within like the chef community of Black Sheep, or, we have smart people working in the office, they often come with initiatives that are really inspiring. Some things that are really easy to implement, like we've recently brought on board a director of culinary. Her name is Patricia Yeo, and she is passionate about sustainability and food waste and all of these wonderful things. And she's done something so simple. So she goes out on a Monday morning and she basically forages around the Black Sheep restaurants looking for all of the ingredients that Balan did not use the night before.
Stealing ingredients from others?
Absolutely, from within our restaurants, right? So everyone and what it has done is it's really changed people's mindsets. So instead of scrapping, the offcuts of the beef or the onions that didn't get used, I'm going to save that for Patricia, and she's going to make aperitivo at Stazione Novella, which is available for all of our guests. So she has basically eliminated the need to buy food for another one of our restaurants, which it's amazing. Yeah. It's like, why didn't we think of that before?
It seems logical, right?
It's perfect.
And we talked about that in the Bar World of Tomorrow, and when we heard from 2 bars, I think it was Koa and Double Shot, they were sharing their ingredients because one bar only needed the outsides, and then the other bar needed the pulp on the inside of the citrus. So it really is about understanding who in your circle really cares about this issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
And working together. Thank you. That is so inspiring. And maybe I just want to move now on to Jermaine at JAR, just from one group to another. When we talked about these sustainability challenges, you mentioned you tried from about 5 years ago, starting on these initiatives, but you've came across a lot of challenges just because either people were moving around, different issues happened, whether it be your zero waste initiatives or the plastics, and you had a lot of challenges around costs as well. Do you want to talk a little bit from the beginning, your journey on sustainability?
Yeah, honestly, so I can be a little bit raw with my experiences. I'm not going to sugarcoat exactly, what we've been going through. Finances are actually a huge thing for us. You've got 13 different restaurants doing 13 different systems. You've got high-end restaurants. You've got low-end restaurants. But at the end of the day, cost is still the same. So for us, I essentially do all the packaging. During COVID, one of the challenges I faced was, I launched a delivery platform within 7 days on Squarespace. It's public knowledge. It was one of the worst websites I ever came out with. But you know what? 5 days later, I have to come up with packaging. So, one of the pledges that we have for our investors is that it needs to be sustainable. But they slashed my budgets by 3/4. So how do you maneuver around that? So the first thing that came into my mind was, okay, let's look at vendors in Hong Kong. All the vendors that were, all the options that they provided for me was way too expensive. And I even looked at, I was so desperate, I even looked on Taobao. It was 50 cents versus $2. You guys do the math. Like, you guys have sleeves, you have packaging, you have bags. At one point, I was literally looking at the costings, and it was about $20. $20. And you guys all work in F&B, so you understand that we run on razor-thin margins. For that, during COVID, I did what we had to do. We literally did advertise that out. Whenever anyone asked me, we're like, it is sustainable. And one of the vendors I asked, I said to them, how much is this packaging? They're like, it's this much. I said, okay, where is it coming from? And they're like, oh, we shipped it over. So I'm not sure if you guys honestly have that problem. I'm still facing that problem to this day. And it sucks. But, how we maneuver that, like, look, everyone else is doing amazing sustainability initiatives. We're doing zero bar wastage. We've implemented burlap sacks. Every little small thing counts. But I can go on and on about amazing initiatives that we're doing. But, for me, it starts honestly from our culture, and every little bit honestly counts. That's how I see it as.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. There's no silver bullet, because you might find something that is a fantastic compostable piece of cling film or vacuum package, but it's shipped from far away. So unless you have the means, the time, the energy to find out if, to do a life cycle assessment, to find out, measure it all out, the carbon emissions from how far it's traveled, it's really tricky. So that's why organizations like ours exist, to help you with that process. So, and actually, that's a nice segue into Mono and Ando, because there are 2 restaurants in your group that are actually members of Food Made Good. They're not here today. But how do you think is it the chefs that really drive it forward, all of these initiatives, or does it come from the top? Or how has it been in this case?
It's a good thing the chef owners aren't here. But no, look, I have the privilege of working with such amazing talents. The one thing is, when you open chef founder restaurants, you look at the quality, you look at seasonality. Working with Food Made Good, you guys didn't pay me to say this, but it's sourcing. Literally, where are you getting your ingredients from? For us, we used to source bread from Europe. It's like, why can't you have perfectly good bread here? It's all about changing your certain mindsets. So with our chefs, they pioneered that, not from management. I wish I did, but they had the initiative themselves. The amazing plates that you see are actually, half of them are actually locally sourced, and you're talking about Michelin star restaurants as well. You can't hide that. So.
again, it comes down to those champions, whether it's the chef, whether it's someone in marketing, whether it's someone else in a different department. You need those people to drive it forward and just persist, as some of you here know, who have been working for years and years on that in that area. That's great. Thanks, Jermaine. So I want to bring it back to Alex now, just a little bit, because you're also in a group, the Tastings group, and you were on the Bar World of Tomorrow training. So it would be great to hear from you. After you joined the session, well, you were one of the earliest bartenders in the group. Have you managed to pick up any tips that you've been able to train the other bartenders on, or have you been able to inspire them with action, or has it just been something you've just been able to do quickly and then back to normal? How has the training program helped you in your operations?
Well, first of all, thank you for the training. It was an amazing experience. The takeaway that we had was we just had to keep looking at ourselves again and again and again. As we just mentioned, there's no one big silver bullet that we can do to change all our operations and suddenly magically become sustainable. But what we can do is we can keep looking at ourselves, not on a yearly basis, but on almost a weekly, monthly basis, and see where and when we can improve. One thing in particular that we've done very well, I think, is we started coordinating the menus of both the kitchen and the bar in all of our outlets. Previously, we didn't really have a central figure to kind of coordinate what's happening at Quinnery versus what's happening at Draftland versus what's happening at Envil or 309. But alongside our new project, which is kind of a factory / central kitchen / a lab, we can now soon coordinate much better what's happening around our each outlets. So, say for example, 309 has a clarified guava juice used in one of the cocktails. That's the remaining pulp that comes out of the centrifuge can be used to make a fruit leather for garnish at Quinnery, for example. Or say, for example, we have a snack now at Draftland which uses fresh sweet corn. All that kind of husk and silk that's being used, that will normally be thrown away. I'm currently dehydrating, and then we'll use the silk for some tea in a winter menu the following year, because once it's dried, it's kind of shelf stable. And the husks, I'm not sure if it's like feasible manpower-wise, but I've had plans of using them to make disposable coasters. But with every single menu change, we say, stop, let's think. How can we use this? Can we use it or no? Then let's say we ask the bar manager at the other outlet, do you guys have use for this now or future? And with the increased logistics of having having all of our outlets so close together in Central, and not to mention our central lab, it just makes everything a lot more easy now.
Those are some really good insider tips for those working in the bartending industry here. Leon, did you have a question for Alex around, because you were also in all those sessions with us, week after week with the bartenders?
Yeah. So I was wondering, Alex. So after the training, what kind of barriers do you face in terms of implementation? Like you had the knowledge, you bring it back with you. I'm sure it's not easy to kickstart, and not easy to kickstart a conversation internally. Like, how do you overcome that?
There's two main challenges. Number one, it's inertia. Whether it's for a big company, if it's a big company, you have inertias of your current inventory. One thing, for example, is that we were one of the first people to get biodegradable BioPod straws, and we ordered a whole bunch of custom printed ones that says I'm a biodegradable straw. And then somewhere along the line, we just stopped using them. We just stopped giving them as a default. And that was 3 years ago. I'm still sitting on that stock because we've moved so few straws. And I think a bigger company has even bigger problem in trying to get rid of that inventory. So even though now there are slightly better alternatives that are closer to home with less carbon footprint, we can't switch that, which is, I guess, a good thing because we're not using these things. But that's one challenge. The second challenge, I think, is awareness. Like people, again, this is also inertia, but it comes from the staff side. So even though I can gather all the managers around and we all have a meeting about what we want to do, what we want to plan to, sometimes people are just so used to a certain way of doing things that they would throw away an ingredient just because that's what they normally do. And it's very hard to suddenly have that kind of spark of inspiration and say, oh, wait, I can do something with this. So what we've been trying to do now is we just try and evaluate what we're doing. Every time we have a menu change, because that's the best time to see what we're throwing away, what we're consuming, then we have a more in-depth conversation about what can we do with those things. We happen to change our cocktail menu pretty frequently for a lot of the outlets. So those opportunities to consider things happen more often. But it's trying to get our managers and supervisors and even the frontline bartenders to think about those kind of challenges, which is difficult. Because I can't be at the bar every day. And there are some things that may fly under my radar that as someone who's working there every day would be more suitable to point out.
Yeah, definitely. That's a common challenge, I think. Like changing behavior and mindsets. It's something you can't do overnight, right? Okay, swiftly moving on. Thanks, Alex. I'm going to get the guys at Penicillin to say a few words because you guys won the most sustainable bar in Asia within Asia's 50 Best. Was that this year, I think it was? I'm losing track of time.
Yeah, it is this year's, yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool. What made you think that, you could... Why did Hong Kong need a sustainable bar? What gave you the idea that you could... not just open a bar, but position yourselves as running a sustainable bar. How did the idea come up?
Firstly, thank you for inviting us here. So the idea come up when there was the time that we were having lots of time with this pandemic in it. So he and I sat down with one day, and then I don't know, it suddenly comes up when we were drinking. Yeah, so now we both
when
quit.
You're drinking.
Yeah, now we both quit drinking. Yeah, it wasn't because because we both thought about it, this program, because the Hong Kong don't really have this kind of program in a beverage. So we sat down, we talked about it, and we tried to implement. So here we are now. No?
Yeah, I think it's, back in the days like year 2020 where all the bars shut down, the lockdown, and then we have plenty of time basically to think something, what's next, what is the Hong Kong need, especially in the bar industry. So we kind of like really thought that, of course, we admire a lot Chef Ricard. We used to work, he's my boss before in a landmark menu in Oriental, and then he done so much things about sustainability, and then and then we ask ourselves, why we don't do, ourselves, especially in the bar side, so because we believe that, back in the days, after 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, people will very conscious on this kind of concept. So yeah, then we have a penicillin, so again, as I say to everyone also, that penicillin is kind of it's not 100% sustainability though, but our aim to be 80% sustainable as we can, because we're still using the electricity, the water, ice, etc. and etc. But what we do here is we kind of doing a closed loop cycle, meaning that we are using all the ingredients to the fullest. So before we put it in the rubbish bin, we need to think twice what we can do, after. Either we can do recycle or upcycle at the same time. Because we have 4 champion elements in our bar, which is, of course, is the bar itself, as well as we have the laboratory, we have a fermentation room, and then the kitchen. First time actually for us, we are doing the food, it's very tough. But again, these 4 elements, helping us a lot to do closed loop cycle as well as the recycle. I just can give you this example. There's a lot of waste in the bar, lime, So basically, what we do, we just either you ask the chef or ask ourselves what's next. It's we send it to the lab or send it to fermentation room for the next ingredient. And then, of course, penicillin is not only just food and drinks. We're talking about our designs. Penicillin is actually, we took the place from I don't know, some of you guys know is Buddha Lounge, which is operate after hours, So we think like, back in the days, we thought, so
Hong Kong.
so we are kind of like take that one, took over that place, and then we think like, hey, take this one, and especially back in the days, like, where all the rent is going down, we are like taking like 30%, 40%, discounts actually. Yeah, and then we think about like just not only food and drinks, but our designs. As you may know, our design is very minimalist because we want to make it like that because as a sustainability concept. And then we're collaborating with the local of a wood factory, which is in Yuen Long. They are collecting all those the fallen tree during the Typhoon Mangkut like 3.5 years ago, and we're collaborating with them. They make our tabletop and all the wood that all from the tree that has fallen, as well as we collaborating with the local. We call like street sign, which is these companies collecting all the neon light from the local shop that they have like neon sign, so they're collecting everything. I know neon light is actually it's not sustainable, but what we're doing here is we do how you say again, Hong Kong heritage sustainability. So we're keeping all those neon light, from the old shop.
Reusing, upcycling, yeah.
Correct, yes. And and then also we, as a sustainability bar, and then we are kind of like really changing our menu time to time, different season, collaborating with the local farmer, fish farm, bee farm as well. So yeah, here we are.
That's fantastic. There's so many initiatives. One that I really want to highlight is the wood, that you use the felled wood to make the tables.
Yes.
And because of that, we were able to also source that wood for our trophies, for our awards, which Richard has won one at Amber. But I think it's just fantastic that you can do all of that on a low budget, because you're one independent bar and you're still able to source of those materials, upcycle them. And you're absolutely right. You say 80%, but we always talk about sustainability as a journey. You're never going to get 100%. And actually, in all the audits that we've done in 10 years, no restaurant has ever got 100%. So I hope that makes you feel better. It's definitely, something that it's all about progress and enjoying the journey. So I'm really excited about the avocado and the seafood shells. What do you do with your avocado pips?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our second menu just launched like 1.5 months ago. And then we all come up brainstorming, like what we can do also with collaborating with the local, the restaurant nearby, which is, as Heidi mentioned, the avocado pit. Actually, we collect from Super Macho Tech area. So again, we don't want to use a lot of ice, ice block, or ice cube. So we think like, why don't we just use the avocado, to replace our ice block, and then we put it in our cocktail. And some of the avocado also we use we make kind of like, instead of the almond milk, we can use that avocado pit for, avocado pit milk instead. And the seashells, because we have lab, so we take advantage of our laboratory. We use a lot of like laboratory tools that be able for us to do kind of recycle. So like, for instance, the seashell, we're collecting all from the just nearby restaurant. A lot of seashell, like for instance, clam, oyster shell from Honky Tonk. They use a lot of like oyster, and then we collect that ones. We just blend it, put it with the whiskey, and we kind of like redistilling.
You blend the oyster shells?
Correct, yes. That is actually the heavy-duty blender. All the chef knows about this one. It's so it can crush the rock actually. So we do that one, and then we do redistilling. So you get like flavor of whiskey with the oyster shell or other seafood shell as well. And not only the avocado, though, we also use a lot of leftover from nearby restaurant. Like for instance, basmati rice. We get it. We are just talking with the chef in New Punjab Club. I know they have used a lot of basmati rice, and then at the end of the day, there is a lot of leftover. Why don't we collect it and then we kind of like recook with the whiskey and rum, and like to put it in a ingredient of one ingredient. Coffee ground, I think as a bartender, there's a lot of like coffee ground. They playing around. What we do here, we collect every single coffee shop. It's all about the timing. Like, I mean, it's not easy to like, especially in the summer, hot summer, you're like walking there to collecting all those. Like, I would say it's kind of like a rubbish man, like.
But I think what's great about this story is that you're really bringing to life all those tips that we shared in the Bar World of Tomorrow training, which was to get to know your neighbors, get to know those in your network, because by working together, you can find some really great solutions. So, hats off to you, and make sure you guys go down to Penicillin. It's definitely like a lab over there, always experimenting. And I remember seeing your post a few days ago. You had some kind of torch lit device. So these guys are always innovating, and that's also part of the whole process. Keep learning and keep going with the flow. Okay, so next up, what do these guys have in common, Penicillin and Richard at Landmark Mandarin Oriental, apart from working together in the past? You're both winners of Asia's 50 Best. So Amber won last year in Asia's 50 Best Restaurants, the Most Sustainable Restaurant Award. And that's just, one of your accolades. You've been working for 15 years on this issue of zero plastic in the hotels. So I don't think Richard really needs an introduction, but I want to talk to you about sustainable luxury, because this is something that a lot of people, they can't connect it. It sounds like an oxymoron. They're like opposites. How do you marry sustainability with luxury? And you're doing it because you're a very high-end hotel. You're able to still make the experience feel luxurious, but you're doing it in a sustainable way. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by sustainable luxury?
Well, first of all, it was a 15-year journey. The hotel this month exists 16 years almost. So I think from the start we had a lot of very good initiatives, and I think over the years we have crystallized them in much more formal sort of structures. Some of the initiatives that we started in the Landmark have been adopted by Mandarin Oriental as a group policy, such as the single-use plastic elimination, which we eliminated this year within the group in March. The bottling, the in-house bottling, for example, we started that 4 years ago with Nordac Fresh. We brought Nordac Fresh at the time to Hong Kong. We started the bottling for all the rooms and all in the restaurants. So it has been a journey, and I think what is important for most people that sort of thinking about making this journey is to think more about smaller sort of scopes that you can sort of address. And it's not so much of trying to reach a perfect system. I think it's better when millions of people running an imperfect system than hundreds of thousands running a perfect one. So Amber existed 16 years, and about 10 years ago I started to talk with the ownership that I felt it was time for a change. I felt we had really stretched the story of Amber. We were a disrupting restaurant when we opened, and I think by about 6 years ago we had become a little bit of vanilla. So everybody loves Amber. And to be a disrupting force again...
That's not a bad thing, come on.
It's not a bad thing, but that is not in the nature of me. I'm not about comfort. I like to challenge myself. I like to challenge my teams. So it was really, the vision was to, how can we redefine the Amber? What is the challenge? Basically challenging the status quo of fine dining. It was to show that a fine dining restaurant or a luxury restaurant can be conscious and more sustainable. And that was basically the vision. Often luxury is associated with excess, with high costs, more expensive, particularly in Hong Kong. That idea of more expensive, the better, is changing the concept of luxury. And that is probably the most difficult. And I will not go through the challenges that we have in that journey, because it's very hard to get everybody on board within that journey. But for us, it was really about focusing on the products, the way they were farmed, the carbon footprint of these products, sustainable manners in they were grown, with a low carbon footprint, respecting biodiversity, and also supporting local farmers. We have mentioned that a couple of times. So it was for us really to use the position of Amber as being a very celebrated restaurant, not only in Hong Kong, but also regionally, is to bring this awareness of sustainability within this level of restaurant business. We were heavily criticized by a journalist that say it was not the position of a fine dining restaurant where you would go to indulge yourself to lead the pack in sustainability. And I totally disagree. I believe it is actually any change is trickled from above. If we can show that we can make change, there is no excuse for anybody else within the chain to make the right decisions in their business model.
That is such a good insight. How dare you, journalist? I wish I could find them. But it's really interesting that they have that concept and that belief. So it's so important to communicate to your customers what you're doing. Can you shed a bit of light on how you do that and in what ways? And do people care? Do they read what you're sharing? And does it have an impact?
Well, sustainability is an integral part of our communication strategy, both internally towards the staff, as externally to our guests. So, and we feel as a business, and particularly as Mandarin Oriental, we have everything to gain from strengthening this messaging. To ensure that the new direction that we started about 3 years ago is clearly passed, we basically wrote for Amber a manifesto. So we have a manifesto which basically outline the key pillars of our direction. And we communicate that, of course, to the team and to our guests. It's very prominently posted in our back of the house areas because when you come to Amber, also part of the experience is in the back of the house. So they get exposed to this messaging that we have established. And of course, through our website, if you go to the Mandarin Oriental website, you go to the Landmark, you go then to Amber, or you go to SOM, or you go to Mobile, you will find a chapter explaining all our sustainability efforts. And that is not a list of that is ended. It's an ongoing list of things that we're undertaking to make sure that we operate within the structure that we have built with the help of Food Made Good to build structure within our sustainability direction. So it is written in every menu. The basic lines of our sustainability efforts. There is a QR code in every message, so if people want to know more, it's a very easy way of clicking through and really get the whole story. It's a multiple page document that is built within these three areas, so community, sourcing, and environment, and where we basically break down everything we are trying to achieve and to do within our building to raise awareness and to strengthen this messaging.
That's great. I find communication is so important because it really holds the businesses to account and it tells the world that you are on it and you're making commitments. That's fantastic. So I think I want to let the audience ask a few questions now. So thanks everyone here. Do we have any questions? And I think we've got a mic that we can take around. So don't be shy. I think there's a lady in the middle here in the green dress. So could you say your name and what organization you're from and who your question is addressed to?
Okay. Hi, my name is Kinsey. I'm the founder of Hong Kong Heartbeat, the Natural Network, since 2001. And I'm just, first of all, kind of in a little alternate reality here. In 1992, I set up the marketing department for Jimmy's Kitchen Group. So I'm quite familiar with unsustainability in terms of waste. And at the same time, from a budget standpoint, there was always making the best use of all of the supplies that you had. My question is on a little bit of a different bent now because I'm starting within my organization and members, I'm starting to recognize that it's challenging for all kinds of businesses, not just F&B, to attract staff. And I think this is not just a Hong Kong thing, we're hearing this everywhere. My question for you is, do you now have potential employees asking questions about your sustainability practices, or is that something that you're having to kind of vet within the interview process. I have my headhunter hat on here for a second. So I find that really curious now because it's something that is a reflection of what's happening in our community beyond what's happening in our back storerooms. Thanks.
Who do you want to ask? Does anybody want to answer that?
Anybody or everybody, really?
Just a small perspective from my side. A lot of our aspiring bartenders, their main priority is to be creative. They love the ability to say, "Oh, I made this cocktail. This is groundbreaking. This is new," and I think for them, sustainability is one aspect of that creativity. So, like, because Tasting Group has made a reputation of just being a bit more unusual, slightly more advanced techniques in terms of our cocktails, they very, very green bartenders come in with just simply the idea, I want to be creative. And then once they experience this kind of strata that definitely penicillin is the pioneer of, they say, oh, wait, I can be creative by using ingredients in very, very unusual ways. One of my personal jobs is training for the staff. So what I do is I give them the tools by saying, hey, this is the science behind how you manipulate certain ingredients, and that's what they use to create that. And A, learning those techniques, and B, being able to apply those techniques is one of the key things I think keeps our staff retention.
Does anybody else want to answer that?
I think just from our point of view, I think very similarly, you have chefs that really do want to hone in on their craft. And as I've said, as an example, many of the chefs that have come to work at Black Sheep do bring these new ideas about sustainability. But aside from being inside the restaurants, we also have a very large team in our base station. And a lot of the people in our base station are very sustainability minded. We have people within the office who want to, push sustainability platforms. They want us to recycle more and do a lot of initiatives so that we become a less wasteful company as a whole. And I wouldn't say that it's a question that they ask before they join, but they have the freedom to implement things, and to help us all. So I think that it is top of mind for a lot of people.
I think sustainability cannot be driven by one single person within an organization. It doesn't matter how big you are. So I think you need to have the buy-in from the team and the buy-in from all your staff members. You will see and identify those people that are extremely passionate about it, and you make sure that they get a prominent role within driving it. But I was the vision initially about the sustainability direction, but now I don't drive it on a daily basis. I'm just there in meetings to inject ideas or to pollinate or maybe reinforce certain concepts of our ideas. But it's really about the team driving the whole sort of agenda of sustainability. So, and I think when you start, for example, within our building, it starts in the canteen. In the canteen, we have a Meatless Monday, for example. Meatless Monday, we just do not only cut meat that day, but we also strengthen it with messages on the table. Why are we doing this? Okay, we all read that the Amazon forest is on fire. We all see that is something that we have no control over, yet Hong Kong is the largest consumer of Brazilian beef and has a full control over what's happening in the Amazon. So if you bring these ideas to the table, then you have a very strong argument to make to your team to say, well, this is why we do the Meatless Monday. And then in return, you might save a little bit of money on that Meatless Monday. So on Tuesday, when you buy a nice piece of pork, you can buy an organic piece of pork. So you have an ethical sort of source protein that you can give. So you can give something better to your staff. You can say, I give cage-free eggs to my staff on a daily basis, and I give vegetables from a local farmer instead of bringing in vegetables from, with the big carbon footprint from a long way. So through these messagings, every time when we change something, we basically plant a seed within the team, and that will help us to drive sustainability even further.
I think that's a really good tip, maybe for Jermaine, about this kind of like saving over here so that you can, pay a bit more for over there. And that is one of the ways that we sort of recommend how you can have better quality, but always along the line of those sustainability principles. For example, saving energy and using those pennies to buy better sourced products. Does anybody else have a question? Yes, we have.
Hi, I'm Tatum Manchetta. I'm editor-in-chief of Time Out Hong Kong. I have a question for Penicillin, Agung, and Roman. Hello. So you guys are striving for 80% like sustainability, and the program is closed loop right now. I'm wondering what comes out of Penicillin's trash in a day. What is not being used? Because you guys do a lot of upcycling and recycling. So what's not being used? So maybe other bars will learn that we can't use this, and then other institution can do something about that.
So we want to know what's in your bin, basically.
All right. I think thanks to Heidi that last time I went to her training, actually organized by Pernod Ricard as well. I learned a lot of things, and then from that day, when I came back to the bars, and then I start to make a checklist, opening and closing. So I personally, think that, in the bar, I can save a little bit of, I think it's more, because, again, as I said before earlier, that, there is a lot of recycle and upcycle at the same time, that, from big bag of trash bin, and then now we only just throwing around 5 to 10 kilogram actually every night, because I remember back in the days when we used to work at the bars, we is throwing away like at least 3 bags, like big plastic bag, So from the bar itself, of course, there is a waste that we need to waste. We cannot like reuse all the time, But that's a fact, But again. I would say like we are like really doing very well, especially in the bar, but we still have a big challenge in the kitchen. We try to kind of like recycling or, like we send it to the lab, and we want to do something that, making some other ingredient for the bars. But unfortunately, there is so much big in the high protein and then the fat, everything that we are not be able to use it. So yeah, I think it's the ways that, after we went to the training, and then the weight actually is lesser than before.
Yeah, so you managed to reduce it some way after doing training with us. That's really good. Maybe we could have a conversation and look at their bins and check it out later. Okay, because we're running out of time for this session, this part, don't leave yet because we're going to do a game after this. But I'm going to attempt to summarize what we've learned here today. What I'm thinking is where there's a will, there's a way. If you have a champion inside, somebody's going to drive it forward. But you need that constant person. Secondly, small, big, doesn't matter what size your business is, you can do something about sustainability. And third, you got to start today and try not to be perfect. Try not to expect too much from it, and take small baby steps. So please give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I'm going to do a group photo, but I don't want you guys to leave yet because we have a game. And there is a prize. So if you look on the table, there are cards, and we're going to run you through an activity. But let's take a picture first. Okay. Okay, so take your seats back. Don't run away because I got a game for you. If you look on the table, there are 3 flashcards. There are a set of flashcards, and I'm going to make sure you guys stick around. So this is about 15 minutes. Have a look at your flashcards, and we have some instructions. So you got to read the flashcards and imagine you're a bartender. So put your shoes in the feet of a bartender. And then you're going to organize them into 2 columns. What you believe is feasible and what you to believe is not feasible. And then you're going to prioritize these tips. And then whoever gives me the best top three, whoever gives me the top 3 best tips, we got a prize for you. Okay, so read your cards. Imagine you're a bartender and you have to work on some ideas on sustainability. Leon, do those instructions sound okay or they sound really difficult? Oops. Okay, so my team are around to help you if you're struggling. They've got a little purple badge on their label. So have a look at the flashcards and imagine you're a bartender. 2 columns is what we need. And let me know what your top 3 tips are. Hey guys. I'll give you 5 minutes. So you've got to read all the flashcards, and then you've got to put them in 2 columns. So you've got to put your feet in the shoes of a bartender. And just to make sure that you do this game, this is the prize here, a beautiful Bar World of Tomorrow apron. And this is super high quality. I've seen it myself. Okay, 4 more minutes. You finished already? You found your top 3 tips? Yeah, your top 3. You have to prioritize which are the top 3 that are the most feasible in a bar. And you have to explain why, by the way. At the end, you should have 3 top tips that you think are easy to do in your bar. You'll need to explain why it's easy to do. Leon, will you help me judge who the winner is?
Oh, tricky.
I know. I'll give you 2 more minutes.
We're going to get them to answer?
Yeah, so they have to tell us what their top 3 sustainability tricks are. Well, whoever wants to offer their answer, I don't think everyone will, but they have to persuade us, like, which 3 are the easiest to do. So what are the top 3? And that they.
Just got to be the judge then.
Oh yeah, maybe yeah. But you help me with the mic, asking people. You guys done? Okay, 1 table is ready. Are you guys ready here? Yes. Yeah, you found your top 3. Okay. Do you have a mic? Okay, 1 more minute, and then we're going to hear what your top 3 are, and then we're going to get Luca to judge the winner. So you need to persuade us why these are the best tips. Okay, looks like everyone's finished. So Luca is going to take the mic around. Does anyone want to volunteer to offer what their top 3 tips are? Don't be shy. Who wants to go first? How about the penicillin guys? You must have some good answers. Okay, Leon, let's get the penicillin guys to tell us what their top 3 tips are. Persuade us why these are the best 3 tips and the most feasible.
This one you talk about.
It's okay already.
So hi.
Hi.
The first one was freeze avocado seeds to
Oh, I
use
love
as
that.
ice cubes with drinks. That is already happening in penicillin.
Super.
And then dehydrate citrus fruits as a garnish. And then using the avocado pits and leftover almonds to make orgeat or other type of syrup.
Excellent. Love it. Lots of upcycling tips there.
Yes.
Thank you. Who's next? Does anyone else want to share their top 3? Maybe Tatam over here. Oh, Malik.
Hi.
Hi.
So we also decided that we'd freeze the avocado pits to use as ice. Leftover citrus fruit to make citrus stock. I think that's just boiling it on the stovetop, right?
Right.
And then using that methylcellulose.
Maybe
instead
Luca
of
can
ice-
help us
instead of
pronounce
egg
that.
whites.
How do you pronounce that egg white word, Luca?
It's called methylcellulose.
Methylcellulose as egg white substitute. I figure that's pretty easy too.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. All right. These guys here, Tatum, what are your top 3? I love that there's lots of upcycling going on here.
Design cocktails around seasonality of fruits. Speak to your neighbors to see if they can make use of your food waste, and incentivize staff to reduce food waste to increase sustainability and profits.
Excellent. So that's more around people management. Okay. Who hasn't gone? How about you guys? You want to share your top 3?
Hi, so the 3 tips we have are different from everyone else's. When receiving fruits, handpick the uglier fruit to use as syrups and purees. Utilize coriander roots and stalks for garnish. Cost-effective and environmental. And the 3rd is use lamb chop side cuts for a lunch soup.
Okay. So getting into a bit of food there. Lamb chops. Great. Okay, Luca, I hope you're thinking about how good these tips are.
Yes,
I think we've got a
thinking
few more
about.
tables here we haven't heard from.
Let's hear about this table.
Add white vinegar to citrus products plus water to make your own cleaning products. Super, super easy. And, don't waste citrus. Use leftover food from the bar for cocktails. And look at using a foot pump or sensors to manage water consumption in the bar.
Brilliant. And I think one of our panelists mentioned that last one about the foot pump. That was easy. Okay, I think last table over here, the Chomp team.
Let's go.
So all of ours are fruit related. The first one is getting the most out of each fruit, 1 orange for 15 garnishes. And then the second one is maximizing ingredients, using lemons for not only juice, but peels, husk, and limoncello, which is one of my favorites as well. Dehydrating fruits to be used in flavored tea.
Okay, super. All right, Luca, you've got a hard job now of choosing a winner.
This is a bit more difficult than I was thinking. But however, one of my favorite practices is having the water pedal in the bar. That's my number 1 favorite.
Yeah.
The second one will be using the lamb cuts to cook something, or the rest of the cuts, to maximize a little bit the whole ingredient or the whole cut. And the last one is a super, super tough decision to make.
I think we only have 1 prize.
Yes, that's why it's a little bit more difficult for me. But I would say methylcellulose, just because of the fact that we need to understand. I tried in my previous places where I worked. I also come from the operational side. We had people, for example, who had egg allergies. So we said, okay, what should we do to replace the egg white? Also, the packaging of the pasteurized egg white is a problem. You use a lot of it. So then we tried to use chickpea water, which is okay.
Chickpea water.
But then we were using basically you use egg white in cocktails when you try to emulsify for sours or for, something like that. Chickpea water does not emulsify so well. Then we went to the third option. Third option was the burrata water. Burrata water is good. However, the problem is not all the bars are restaurant bars. And even the bars who are restaurant bars, not all of them serve burrata, right? We have a multitude of restaurants over there. I said, okay, let's give it a go. In the place that I used to work, we used a lot of burrata, so we managed to upscale the water from the burrata. The problem is after 3.5 hours, it becomes bitter, and it does not emulsify itself anymore. Then the methyl cellulose came into the way, and it has two usages, actually. If you heat it up, it's basically a powder made out of plants. So if you heat it up, you can use it as a jelly emulsifier. So you can make jellos or you can make all kind of crazy stuff in a pastry. But however, if you mix it with water in certain ratios, it imitates perfectly the the consistency of the egg white. The second thing is, it does not have, it needs to have, due to the governmental restrictions, a certain shelf life, but on the packaging is written 2 years or 3 years, something like that. So we did some experiments in our office. We left it outside 6 months, 7 months. Consistency was the same. Everything was totally the same. So with 18 grams of powder, you mix it with 750 ml of water. You make the calculation. You check how much you pay for the pasteurized egg white, and I'm telling you, your accountant will love you.
Good tip, but you still have to make a decision, Luca.
Yes.
Only one prize.
The third one is the methyl cellulose.
Okay, well done to you guys, Malik. All right, do you want to give them the prize, and we can come get your prize?
The prize goes to.
Yeah, give it over. Let's take a picture. That's Jordan. Look at Jordan.
Congratulations.
Smile. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great job, guys. Oh my gosh, he's like a wealth of knowledge.
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Sometimes you just nail it down by error and trial. It's not easy, but sometimes it's possible just to do a bit of research, especially in the restaurant business where you have restaurant bars.
So thanks, Luca. That was
Thank you very much.
super.
I'm gonna
And
pass
I
the phone
hope you
to Leo.
guys managed to pick up some insights there, because all of these cards are taken from insights that we've drawn from our bartenders over the last 6 months of training. So these are all very valuable tips that you're welcome to use and take home and think about how you can apply it to your own operations. Last up, we got Alex. So Alex is going to show us how to make a beautiful cocktail, and you guys get to try it as well. Alex, over to you. Are you mic'd up?
I am, yes.
Okay,
How's
super.
That? Oh, it's very loud, very loud.
All right, over to you.
Could you do me a favor? Could you fill this bottle up to this line? Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you. Sorry. Quicker? Thank you. Yes. Hi guys, how are y'all doing? Hope you found that very, very instructive. So now I'll be going through a small little demo on how to bring a little sustainability into your cocktails. Now I feel a little bit embarrassed because obviously Agung and Roman are probably the most qualified to talk about this, but they have a prior engagement, so I'll be taking charge instead. So, the main key in working with ingredients in cocktails to try and bring more sustainability to your business or your bar is really to know your ingredients. You can't use something that you've never used before in terms of, if it hasn't been used before, then you need to know how to manipulate it into a way that works for you. So for example, we will start off with a few techniques which are very simple, straightforward, things you may have already seen before if you happen to be a professional bartender. For example, a lot of bars, they use citrus peels and garnishes, lemons, oranges, grapefruits, and a lot of bars will just trim off the edges so they're not so raw, so they're clean and more nice looking. So what do we do with that? When you consider a waste product, you have an idea of, I can't use this because of, right? So if you look at the fact that you have citrus peel trimmings, you can't use it because they're irregular shapes, they're too small, they're too small to be of any use to you. So what do? You still can have fresh citrus oil in those trimmings, but in order to use them, what you can do is you use something called oleosaccharum, which is basically using sugar to combine with the peels to extract the oils. And traditionally, what we do is you take some sugar, some peels, muddle them together, and let it sit for hours. But that's very labor intensive. Nowadays, with technology, if you happen to have a vacuum packer in your shop or bar, all you do is put a certain amount of sugar with a certain amount of citrus peels, vacuum pack it very, very tightly, and then the natural vacuum will kind of pull those oils out and dissolve sugar inside. So it's working on both osmosis as well as vacuum pressure. With that oil, you can use it as drops in like a martini, for example, just a little bit of a flavor on top, a little bit of aroma, as opposed to using fresh peels to squeeze over the martini. Other things that you may hear in bars is things like a pineapple skin. Why can't I use it? Because obviously it's too tough. I can't put it in my mouth. I can't eat it. I can't juice it. But the thing is, when you peel a pineapple, you still have bits of flesh attached to it. It's very fibrous, but it does have juice. It does have flavor. And one thing that you can do with them is you can simmer it with some sugar syrup, and the flavor of the pineapple will infuse into the syrup. It is a little bit different, yes. It's not like the regular pineapple juice that you get. It's a bit more green. Imagine if you mixed pandan and pineapple together. It's a little bit closer to that kind of flavor. If you happen to infuse fruits into your spirits, you may be curious enough to try eating those fruits afterwards. Like one of my first jobs as a bartender, we infused strawberries into vodka. I made the terrible mistake of eating one of those after it was finished infusing. It was awful, terrible. So bitter, so strong. And on top of that, they're really ugly because the alcohol leaches the color away from the strawberries. And all goes to the vodka. The leftover fruit is very gray, very bland. Well, I can't use it because I would normally not be able to use it because it's a little bit ugly, it's a bit alcoholic. But what you can do is you can puree them up. You cover those flaws by, instead of having whole ugly fruit, you now have a blend, a puree. And you can use that alcohol to your advantage by adding more things like a grenadine, for example, is the easiest way. Or if you want to be more controlling about the sugar level, you add a little bit of sugar, a little bit of acid, lemon juice, or vinegar, or citric acid itself to balance that flavor. And then dehydrate it into a fruit leather, fruit roll-ups, for example. I mentioned before that we used the guava, centrifuged guava puree into a fruit leather as exactly the same technique. Now, one thing you might want to know is that if you want something pliable like fruit leather, you might want to use things like agave nectar into your fruit leathers because agave nectar has a lot of fructose, which is something called invert sugar. Invert sugars are sugars that don't crystallize, so they will maintain moisture and be nice and soft and pliable. If you put those pureed fruits straight in the dehydrator, what you end up is something like a little crispy, more like this. This is actually tomato pulp that we centrifuge as well. I'm not sure if you can see it, but we do have two more things down there, which is a bit more complex. Now, some people have a lot of rice left over. I think Agung was talking about New Punjab Club, which has a lot of basmati rice. How can we use that? The easiest way to use rice like that is to simply blend it with water to make a rice milk. But if you want to go one step further, you can look about using something like malt barley or amylase enzymes. Because the foundation of all spirits is to take a starch and turn it into some sort of sugar form that can be fermented. We don't have to ferment it into alcohol ourselves because that's taxable by the government and we want to avoid the tax man whenever possible. But you can instead use it to make something called amazake, which I'll go into in the next couple of slides. So using rice in a cocktail, I just mentioned before that you can start breaking down starch. Now this chemical over here, this is the kind of structure of starch. And that over there is something called glucose. Now fundamentally what fermenting spirits and beers and wines is doing is we're breaking down starches into sugars using enzymes. And those enzymes are very plentiful in something called malt barley. Who's had any interest in brewing your own beer by any chance? I guess I'm the only one. There, Leon as well. Okay, there you go. There's actually a few shops in Hong Kong where you can get malt barley. Malt barley is something that's used in beer making to provide these enzymes to break down these starches. Now, what we can do instead in our bars is if you use leftover rice, we can use those malt barleys and make something called, in Korea, we have something called shikhae. I'm half Korean, by the way, so that's where I got inspiration for this. Or you can make something called amazake, which is more common in Japan. Now, shikhae is something that is usually served cold. It's summertime drinks. It's very refreshing. You have that savoriness of rice, but you also have a little bit of sweetness because that rice has been broken down. Now, in the cocktail that we have today, we'll be using a little bit of that shikhae that we make ourselves from leftover rice, but we're also going to be using something made from eggshells. Now, so by the way, this is the recipe for making amazake. If you want to make it yourself, basically you take a little bit of rice, you combine it with a little bit of water and some malt barley. You hold it at a certain temperature, and that temperature allows the enzymes to work the starch until it breaks down without destroying those enzymes inside the barley. In a professional bar and kitchen, the easiest way to do this is to simply take your mixture of rice, barley, and water, put it in a vacuum bag, and use a sous vide, a slow cooker, to maintain that temperature for a certain amount of time. Generally, a batch of this size of 1 liter takes about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. Another ingredient in the cocktail we're making today uses eggshells. Now, we've heard about using eggs in a cocktail and using egg alternatives. If you are still going to be using eggs, whether your kitchen uses eggs in their pastry division or if you're just making a scrambled egg for yourself, you can use eggshells in a certain way. So back to the question of why can't we use it? Well, because we can't use eggshells because it's inedible. It's basically a mineral. But therein, if you know a little bit of science, you can figure out a way to incorporate that into your cocktail. Because eggshells are made primarily of calcium carbonate, which is chemically the same thing as limestone. And limestone is something that we know is an integral part of sparkling water, the spring water. The minerality that we love so much in bottled spring water is due to dissolved minerals like magnesium, calcium, what have you. So what I did was I added vinegar to eggshells to dissolve that calcium carbonate and create calcium hydroxide. Now, calcium hydroxide might sound scary, but it's actually just all those, it's exactly the same thing as you get in the calcium supplement pills. It's just simply a soluble form of calcium. Like regular calcium will blow up if it contacts the water, but calcium hydroxide is just simply dissolved, just like regular sea salt. Now, what are we doing with this? If you remember in high school, you may have done this, maybe elementary even. You may have done an experiment where you've kept an egg inside vinegar, and then eventually the shell disappears, and all you have is left the raw egg and membrane left inside. This is doing the exact same thing. What we do is we take eggshells, just rinse them in water, make sure all the egg white, all the skins are taken off, keep it inside boiling water for a while to sterilize it, and then you can dissolve inside vinegar. That vinegar will no longer be sour because all the acid is being used up to dissolve those eggshell minerals. So instead, what you have left is something that has, if you drink it by itself, it's going to be quite odd to you because it's basically just pure calcium solution. But if you use small amounts, it gives you a minerality into your drink. I actually used this in a competition earlier this year. I used it to accentuate a Highland tequila, which was very crisp, very mineral. And using this eggshell vinegar, I was able to accentuate that minerality of the tequila. And today, I'll be using that same thing to accentuate the savoriness of the rice we're using for the cocktail. So to the cocktail itself, this is called the Fundamental. It was originally a vodka drink that I made back in 2018. But today I'm using a lovely rum from Havana Club. The 3-year-old has a lovely wood notes, which I think will work very well with the amazake, the shikhae, and that mineral of the eggshell shrub. So The foundation of the cocktail is very, very simple. We just have a little bit of rum, 45 mils of rum. We have 45 mils of this fermented rice product called shike. Just a little bit of simple syrup, a touch of pineapple juice, and the eggshell vinegar. So I'm using only 5 ml in this because it's a very delicate drink, and that 5 ml already stands out a lot. In a competition I used this drink in, I used tomato water. And in that case, the tomato was so rich and savory that I can afford to put in 15 mils of this vinegar. But here, we're just using 5 because otherwise it stands out too much. The recipe here says lemon juice. In the bar I'm primarily based at, Draftlands, we don't use fresh citrus juices. We only use citric acids and malic acids solutions because they can be packed dry, and shipping them over has a very low carbon footprint. But if you happen to be using lemon juice, you can use 10 mils of that. And then ginger juice. Ginger juice is just something that's ginger blended with water, and then if you have it in your bar, I used to work at very, very small bars, and the versatility of your cocktail ingredients was key. So if I had ginger juice, I can use it in something that's a very dry ginger beer, if someone ordered that, instead of having to buy and ship bottles of ginger beer. Or I can use it with a little bit of honey and soda to make a Moscow Mule or a Dark and Stormy instead. So when you have small programs, you can avoid waste by having a multiple use ingredient like that. I did mention soda. Soda is something that's, it seems very silly to me because you're shipping water with less carbon dioxide. If you happen to have things like the Nordax system or the Baloo system, you can afford to use the sparkling water systems there instead. In Draftland, we managed to save a lot of soda water and mixers by simply using our draft system to create carbonated drinks by simply adding CO2 to that itself. Sorry, forgot some ice. And I mentioned that because instead of adding soda to this drink, I'm just going to simply carbonate the entire drink directly using something called the Perlini system. The Perlini system is basically a cocktail shaker combined with a pressurized cylinder. So at my cocktail shaker here, I have basically a CO2 pellet. You may see this in some stores. It basically looks like a cream whipper. But the system allows you to carbonate drinks without having to rely on soda from your suppliers. Now, when it comes to garnishing, what I like to do in our bars is to use our dehydrator to its fullest. So whenever you have these leftover fruits or leftover ingredients, especially if it's been crushed or pulverized, you can pop in the dehydrator. And my personal tip is to run it at a lower temperature. If you have dehydrators that are running at high temperatures, you tend to oxidize the fruits, so they turn out black and brown and ugly. But if you use something close to 47 degrees, 45 degrees, you tend to preserve the color of your fruit. If you ever happen to have a dehydrated lime wheel, if you've noticed sometimes the inside fruit is quite brown and oxidized, that's because they're dehydrating too high a temperature. If you lower your temperature, you save a little bit of energy, and you also preserve the color and maintains a very bright, beautiful yellow color. The only thing you need to avoid is for meats and proteins. If you dehydrate them, you definitely need to go above 60 to avoid the risk of salmonella and E. coli. In this case, I've used some leftover tomato pulp from making clarified tomato water and just popped in the dehydrator, and it's very versatile. I can use it as a crisp, or I can put in a spice grinder to make a powder, which I can dust rinse at. So Ladies and gentlemen, that is the fundamental. I have some samples here for you guys all, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Alex. That's amazing. You're an incredible wealth of knowledge. Amazing. And look at that beautiful cocktail. We need to get a picture of that. All right, guys. So does anybody have any questions? We're going to give you some samples, but I think we have to try them outside. Is that right, Charlotte? Okay. So do come forward and pick up your sample, but you'll have to taste it out over to the left in the tasting area. Thank you guys for sticking with us for 2 hours on this stage takeover, and I want to see you next year here. Thanks for coming. Bye.